Well, you look at this little guy with a damn eyeball on the end of his arm and you think you can take him in a real fight, but you can't, because he knows jujitsu, brother. Hey fella, I don't want you going through life sleeping on the little guys, the gooey little messy little fellas whose head looks like a famunda cheese. This guy's gonna rock the sock right off your rooster. Let's talk about what makes this little idiot fun, interesting, and competitive. And if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe, or you can be like my buddy Tyler and buy me a coffee at the link in the description. But if you don't, that's fine, because I give my mastery out for free. Unlike this guy, it's the Master Transcendent. 1 black, blue, and a green for a legendary artifact creature mutant. It's a 2/4. When this guy enters the battlefield, target player gets 2 rad counters. Has tap, put target creature card in a graveyard that was milled this turn onto the battlefield under your control. It's a green mutant with base power and toughness 3/3. This is free reanimation. All you need to do is tap, so it caught my interest right off the rip. It overwrites power toughness, but that can be an advantage if the creature has lesser base stats. The biggest limiting factor is the milled this turn clause. That can be pretty sad if you aren't regularly milling. This ability also can be activated at instant speed, I'm just saying, dude. It also does not specify that the milled card needs to be associated with rad counters. And it can also target any graveyard, so milling your opponents is perfectly viable. And like the mimeoplasm decks of old, milling yourself can be amazing. I opted for a nice mix of both, just like I used to do in my mimeoplasm decks. He's also a great include, but we'll get to that later. Now before we get too deep into the deck I put together for your goldfishing pleasure, we need to address the hairy monkey in the room. No, it's not that I'm frantically Rule 34ing this guy, it's that he's a combo machine. Now this isn't really a combo, but there are a couple neat things you can do with the Master. Intruder Alarm, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap all creatures. This used to be a very expensive card, but it's down to $2 for this beautiful Eldraine version. This guy has Arouse the Fairies, which you should never do unless you buy him dinner first. Let's say you traumatize the elf deck across the table, tap the Master, activate him, get Llanowar Elves. Intruder Alarm triggers, untaps our guy, activate again to get whatever nasty creature out of the yard that were milled with the big traumatize. This is neat, it's a lot of fun. Traumatize yourself if you want, brother. So that first ability, when the Master Transcendent enters the battlefield, target player gets 2 rad counters. Happens whenever you reanimate him, blink him, or recur him, or cast him from the command zone. If we can create infinite mana and infinite blink with Peregrine Drake and Deadeye Navigator, then we can infinitely blink our commander to irradiate everyone. That's the dream, dude, radiation. So this mechanic reads like this. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if you have any rad counters, mill that many cards. For each non-land card milled this way, you lose 1 life and a rad counter. So if we can irradiate every other player infinitely, they're going to mill themselves out and lose on their turn. Food Chain is another combo enabler that will allow the Master to explode with radiation all over your face. Food Chain is 2 and a green for an enchantment. Exile a creature you control, add X mana of any one color, where X is 1 plus the exiled creature's mana value. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. I got this sweet VHS version some time ago. You know, I didn't buy the whole Secret Lair though. I just picked up the single I wanted when it got cheap. But not too cheap, man. It's still a little pricey. We can get infinite mana and infinite sacrifice using Mist Hollow Griffin or Eternal Scourge. These guys, you can cast them from exile. Going colored mana positive with each cast. Then you can start sacrificing the Master and just blast radiation from the windows to the walls. Now there are a bunch of other combos and win conditions. Isochron Scepter, Dramatic Reversal might be good in the deck, but just don't facilitate the radiation plan. Just infinite mana and untaps for our guy. So we can easily slot in some of the combos if you want to amp up the power level of the Chad Master here, but what are some good enablers for our guy? I don't understand why this guy's so jubilant. Is it Christmas or what, man? Well, it is if you want to punch Phyrexians in the face. So Tyvar here is 1 black and a green for a legendary planeswalker. You may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. Has +1, untap up to 1 target creature, -2, mill 3 cards. Then you may return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Has loyalty of 3. This guy does everything we want. He gives our dude haste, he untaps him, and he mills. This guy with his hexagon arms, he makes stuff happen in this deck. He's cheaper than 1000 Year Elixir, which is also great in the deck if you have the budget. There's also this subset of reanimation spells that mill as a part of their effect. Breach the Multiverse is getting a little pricey, man. I told you guys, 5 black for a sorcery. Each player mills 10 cards. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker. card in that player's graveyard. Put those cards onto the battlefield under your control, then each creature you control becomes a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. Always wanted to be a Phyrexian. So not only does everyone get to mill, but you get a bunch of creatures, then an additional creature with the Master. There should be quite a suite of creatures to choose from at that point. Incarnation Technique is another banger. You're getting stuff back from your graveyard and an opponent gets to get one, but the Master's going to see the rest with his avaricious little eye stalks and claim one for his super mutant army. And Extract from Darkness is probably the crappiest of all, but it can use up the creatures that were milled this turn and give you 7 other milled cards to choose from for the Master's ability. Gyruda is kind of a similar effect and works to get a little more mill around the table. When Gyruda enters the battlefield, each player mills 4 cards. Put a creature card with an even mana value from among the milled cards onto the battlefield under your control. A little more restrictive. Now Mesmeric Orb is the champ, dude. It's a great mill engine, man. Everybody's milling around the table. Altar of the Brood is kind of good too. Mindcrank means a lot of mill as well. These are just solid little mill engines. Mindcrank also combos with Duskmantle Guildmage. That first ability can also guarantee a player kill with Traumatize. I'm always tempted to traumatize myself. I do that every time I look in the mirror, brother. It's always a surprise. But this is even better. Maddening Cacophony. 1 in a blue for a sorcery. It has kicker for 3 in a blue. Each opponent mills 8 cards. If the spell was kicked, instead each opponent mills half their library rounded up. This of course also combos with Bruvac, which is also amazing in this deck but is about $11. He's a thick anime waifu Bruvac if you lean in that direction. And I do, brother. While we're on the subject of win conditions, we have 44 creatures in our deck and are milling ourselves like crazy. Sir Conrad the Grim, this guy is everything to me, man. Look at him. Look into his eyes. Look into his soul, dude. Plus he's got that last little nasty ability that everybody forgets about anyway. Look at him. Now you may have never heard of this guy, but the Dreadhound is 4 black for a creature demon dog. It's a 6/6. When this guy enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Whenever a creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from a library, each opponent loses 1 life. Not quite as robust as Sir Conrad, but almost as good in a self-milled deck or a milled deck like this. He's a nice dog. Is he friendly? Can I give him a little pet? Very eerie art on this guy. Love this card. Great reanimator target with that static ability. Now say we accidentally mill a combo piece, right? We want to get it back somehow, dude. So we have these Witness Twins, Timeless and Eternal. Noxious Revival got a nice reprint last year and is down to about $4. This is an instant, just bang this out on your last opponent's end step. You can get it back to hand or combo out, brother. And you probably want to add a couple tutors for consistency's sake, and this one is super interesting in this deck in particular. Mythos of Brokos. 2 green for a sorcery. If blue and black was spent to cast a spell, search your library for a card, put that card in your graveyard, then shuffle. Return up to 2 permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. So if you have one of your combo pieces milled into your graveyard, go get the other. Use this to dig them both out. Now we all know it doesn't matter that you're milling a million cards and you have 44 creatures in your deck, you're going to mill lands because you're unlucky, dude. Whenever you want to mill a creature card, you mill a land. So you may want to slot in this beautiful boy, the Blossoming Tortoise. 2 green for a creature turtle. It's a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, mill 3 cards, then return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Activated abilities of lands you control cost 1 less to cast, don't care, and land creatures you control get +1/+1, also don't care. The real meat in this deck is that first ability, milling cards and reanimating lands. This guy's the one who figured out Aftermath maybe wasn't such a good idea. The Analyst. 1 and a green for an elf detective. It's a 1/3. When this guy enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Has 3 and a green, sacrifice it. Return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. After a little bit, you'll be blasting 5 or 6 lands with this guy, man. And we have a couple more bangers from 40k, the Necron Deathmark. 3 black for an artifact creature, Necron. It's a 5/3 with flash. When this guy enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target creature and target player mills 3 cards. You can mill yourself if you want. This art is amazing. Look at these skeletal, menacing robots, brother. This is a great reanimator target and a sweet little dose of mill. We want to interact with our opponents, so creatures that kill things on ETB are really good in this deck. But you know what, man? We want engines, and out of the tombs is 2 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Eon counters on it, and mill cards equal to the number of Eon counters. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you can't, you lose the game, you idiot. That whole second ability probably won't matter anyways, unless the game goes 5 or 6 hours or you mill yourself out. In any case, it's a sweet mill engine, depicts you and your buddies emerging from a basement into the night to seek and destroy a bag of Doritos. Alright dudes, this deck weighs in at about $130 or so, does not include any of the pre-con cards, but some of them would be great in here too, especially Tato Farmer. I've been wishing for a Sultai Mill Commander forever, and this is an excellent one with a little combo spice. It's cool to win without mill, and it's also cool to win by radiation, so thanks for checking that out. Decklist is in the description, and thanks again for liking and subscribing and being cool guys out there to all your friends. Definitely building this guy with some bling blang paper to annoy all my friends. Snicky G from Better Commander, signing off.